Welcome back to my channel. When we talk about providing configurations in Angular, like factory provider or class provider, we are essentially binding something to a specific token. That token could be a value, a class, or a factory. But what if you want to provide something simpler, like an enum, a plain object, or even an interface? What if you don't have a class to use as a token? In that case, you can create a custom token using Angular's InjectionToken class. In this video, I will show you how it works. My name is Maxim Grom. This channel is about web development. Let's get started. Think of injectors as a container with two maps. A map for configurations, what token is linked to what provider, and a map for cached instances. In Angular, tokens are the keys for these maps. The token can be a class, a string, a symbol, or a custom injection token. In JavaScript, a map must be unique, and the same applies to Angular's tokens. So, what types of tokens does Angular support? I always recommend looking into the Angular types to understand what the class do and what Angular expects from us. First, we need to check documentation what type can be used as a token. Let's check app config and provider's property. The value or class provider. And we have a hint. Provide is an injection token, which can be an instance of type or injection token, but can be any. That last one, any, can be confusing. In practice, we usually use a class as a token, but technically even a string can be used. Let's test that. We will try to use a string as a token in a provider. As usual, let's test it in app component. Oops! When using the inject function, TypeScript complains. You can't inject a string directly. We have to check the injection function and check provider token type. Inject function expects a provider token which must be a class, abstract class, or instance of injection token. Where is any? But we can cheat a bit and use a string token with a type assertion. Angular accepts it, but it's not recommended. And you see, it works. This backward compatibility is mostly for old Angular code. Let me show you how constructor let us inject custom tokens. We cannot inject string, but we can add decorator to the constructor argument. In JavaScript, different register makes different values. Inject in Pascal case, it is decorator. Inject in lowercase, it's a function. Let's jump into the inject decorator declaration. You see, token can be any. It gives me one more reason to migrate to inject function SAP. Let's verify. And it gives me the same result. The right and recommended way to provide a string is to use injection token. This is a helper class that allows you to define custom tokens while preserving type information. To organize your code, it's a good idea to place all tokens in a dedicated file. For this example, I'll use constant TS, but feel free to name it according to your team's convention. Naming the file constant TS is not considered best practice in real projects. I'm doing it here for the demonstration. I have created a new instance of injection token with type of string and unique random string as first parameter. This token can now be used in your provider. Let me add one more. I provided foo injection token and added use value test foo token. Keep in mind that when you use an inject decorator in a constructor, TypeScript won't automatically infer the type from the token. You will have to explicitly declare the expected type. Because type is string and string here, I don't need to change anything. And it works. Let's replace this one. However, if you use the inject function, Angular will infer the type for you, which is why I recommend using inject function whenever possible. It improves type safety and catch mistakes early. For instance, if I say that bar is number, it is not correct type. String is not assignable to number. I would recommend to repeat the type in the class as a best practice to catch the issue as early as possible. Message from TypeScript could be confusing if you have a long chain of transformation for it. And let's verify. It works. We still have a sad moment that use value doesn't reflect on injection token type. Even for class provider, we cannot use compatible type. I can put the number here and no issue from TypeScript will appear. It's really sad. We will explore more patterns like this in future video. Short idea that we have to encapsulate the provide logic into the function to avoid mistakes. Now let's talk about interfaces. In Java or C#, it's common to inject interfaces instead of classes. But in TypeScript, interfaces don't exist at runtime. It is not a good practice in Angular to bind interfaces. So how do you inject something based on an interface? We should use an injection token. Let's create and export the interface, and then create a token with that interface as a generic type. I created a new interface config and created injection token for it. Now I can safely inject my config object using the token. Taking this config token. Still, I am not a big fan of how it looks. And now we can inject it. Why do Java developers use interfaces so much? Because interfaces are a layer of abstraction. You can swap implementations freely, for example, swapping a console logger with a Slack logger, a mail logger, or API logger. You don't want to rewrite your whole application just to change a login strategy. In Angular, you can achieve this flexibility either with tokens or with abstract classes. Unlike interfaces, abstract classes exist at runtime, so you can use them directly as tokens. Inject function has it in the list. See? Let me show how it may look. I'm going to generate logger in a services folder. I have created logger service with one method, log. And now I'm going to create console logger. And I created child class console logger service and implemented log method and just logged everything in console. And let's provide it. I'm binding console logger service to logger service. Now I can inject logger service. Let's verify that injected service works. You see test logger 5. This approach feels more natural for Angular and works well with TypeScript-based inheritance. It also improves readability and consistency. Do you know that TypeScript allows you to implement classes instead of extending them? Technically, abstract class could be used as 100% replacement of interfaces. But nobody would understand you, so keep this possibility in a secret. You see, it works well. I don't need to write override because it's not inheritance. I work with logger service as regular interface. Also, I can use several abstract classes as interfaces, which I cannot do with extension. Implementation of abstract or any other class does not create any issue. I'd like to use previous version. Let's continue. Another reason to use injection token is when you need to inject multiple values For example, an array of interceptors, validators, or transformers. With a token, you can provide an array and even mark it with multi-true. I will show that in more detail in the next video. For now, here is one more cool trick. You can define your token as self-provided using the providedIn option. With providedIn root, the token behaves like a service, automatically tree-shakable and only added to the bundle if it's used. If result of this token is an object, I recommend using a class instead. But if you need a primitive or an array or an existing DOM object, what cannot be done with class, you can use InjectionToken instead. I added this example. Token is self-provided in root. Also, I added usage of the inject function inside it. I'd like to log it. This logic can be more complex with possibility to inject anything. I copied this implementation from Angular common framework and added logger to it. Let me now inject this bus token. It works. If I don't inject it, it will never be added to the bundle. If you are working on project architecture, this knowledge must be helpful to design the best architecture. The Angular team uses this technique in the Angular common library. For example, the document token gives access to the global document object, which is essential for SSR. Angular Dependency Injection is a really great solution from Angular. Do you know that dependency injection has been reused in Nest.js, backend framework based on Node.js? InjectionToken is a great concept for the Angular team in my opinion. Let's summarize the lesson before end this video. If you don't have a class to use as a token, use InjectionToken. Use inject function instead of inject decorator for better type interface and safety. To inject based on an interface, use an InjectionToken with interface. Abstract classes can be used as runtime tokens. InjectionToken lets you provide primitive value or array. Make tokens available globally via providedIn root. Use factories to configure default values. This pattern is powerful and aligns with the Angular architecture. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this lesson useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Bye now.